Both of Nolan Wells' Snapchat accounts show zero history for the day he disappeared. Not a few messages, not partial history, zero. And his mother watched the phone that made those messages move across her screen in real time, from an island in the Gulf of Mexico to a friend's house in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, while her son was still missing. That is not a rumor. That is not a theory. That is what Christine Wonsley said out loud in the briefing after the funeral. And it changes what this case is. Let me explain what Snapchat actually does, because a lot of older viewers have heard the name but never used the app, and this detail is the whole story. Snapchat is a messaging app. You send a message, you send a picture, you send a short video, and by design, on purpose, 24 hours later, that message is gone. Not hidden, not archived, gone. The picture is gone, the video is gone. Even the little line in your history that says, hey, a message was sent at this time, in a lot of cases, is also gone. That was the whole selling point of the app when it launched. Privacy. Messages that disappear. Nothing to look back on. For a 19-year-old, that is fun. That is normal. That is how a whole generation talks to each other. But in a case like this one, that architecture is a problem, a very big problem, because the single most important 24 hours in Nolan Wells' life, the last 24 hours he was known to be alive, are the exact 24 hours the app is designed to erase. That is what the family is fighting. That is what Ben Crump is fighting. That is what the Jackson County District Attorney is going to have to fight in the same room at the same time when they open that phone together. And I will get to why they are opening it together in a second, because that detail alone tells you how far the trust in this case has fallen. But first, I need you to see the timeline the way Christine saw it, because this is a mother's story. And every technical piece of this case comes back to her sitting in her home, staring at her phone. Christine and Nolan shared their location. Like a lot of moms and their college-age kids, she could open one app and see where he was on a map. He could see where she was. Simple, comforting, normal. The 4th of July night, she opens the app. She sees the dot for Nolan on Horn Island. Fine. That is where he told her he was going. It is a boat trip, there is a bonfire, there are friends, it is Independence Day. She does not think twice. Later that night, the dot moves. The dot leaves the island. The dot crosses the water back to shore. The dot moves inland. But the dot does not stop at Nolan's house. The dot stops at a friend's house. She calls him, no answer. She texts him, no answer. She opens Snapchat because that is where her son actually is on a normal day. Nothing. Not a story, not a message, not a snap. Silence. The kind of silence a mother knows in her bones is wrong, then it hits her. The dot on her screen is not her son. The dot is her son's phone. And the phone is at a friend's house. And her son is not answering. Which means her son is not with the phone. Which means her son is somewhere she cannot see. That was the moment. The moment every parent in this audience just felt in their chest. She calls a friend of hers to go over to that house and check. That friend eventually gets the phone back. That friend brings the phone to Christine. And when Christine gets the phone in her hands, she opens Snapchat. Both accounts, because Nolan, like a lot of young people, had a main account and a private one. She opens the main one. Zero history for the day. She opens the private one. Zero history for the day. Now think about this. It is not just that the messages are gone. It is that the record of the messages is gone. On a normal day, a 19-year-old boy on a 4th of July boat trip is sending snaps constantly, selfies with friends, videos of the water, sunset shots, group chats about the bonfire. That is what an average day looks like on that app. This was not an average day. This was a holiday. This was a beach trip. This was a 19-year-old with his friends on a boat. There should have been 30 snaps, 50 snaps, 100 snaps, zero, and Christine got the phone back inside the 24-hour window. Which means at the moment the phone came into her hands, the auto-delete had either just fired or was actively firing, or, and this is the possibility that changed the entire case, someone else had already deleted them manually before her friend picked the phone up. That is the choice. Either the app ate the evidence on schedule, or somebody in that house sat with that phone, opened it, and cleared it out on purpose before it went back to the mother. Neither answer is good. One is an app doing what apps do. The other is somebody destroying evidence in an active missing person case involving their friend. And nobody outside of that phone knows yet which of the two is true. That is what the joint inspection is going to try to answer. Now let me tell you about the joint inspection, because this detail is a big deal that almost nobody has explained properly. Ben Crump's forensic team and the Jackson County District Attorney's Office have agreed that when the phone is opened, it will be opened together. Not one first, then the other. Both in the same room at the same time, watching the same screen. Neither side gets to touch the device without the other side watching. That is very rare. I want you to understand how rare. In a normal case, law enforcement takes a device, runs it through their forensic tools, generates a report, and then if the family's attorneys push hard, the family might get access to the same data later. That is the normal order. That is not what is happening here. What is happening here is the family's lawyer and the state's lawyer have looked each other in the eye and said, "I do not trust you to hold this alone." That is what a joint inspection means. It means neither side believes the other side will preserve the evidence correctly or will not accidentally or on purpose let something get lost. So they will only open it together. That is what a total breakdown of trust looks like on paper. And it is a signal to the audience that everyone in that room believes there is something on that phone worth destroying. Now, I need to bring in the third piece because this one raises the whole case to a federal level. And most people watching still do not understand what happened. The FBI is now involved, but not the way you think. The FBI is not investigating how Nolan Wells died. That is the sheriff's job. That is the state of Mississippi's job. What the FBI is investigating is threats, specifically threats that have crossed state lines and are being sent to people connected to the case. That is a federal crime, interstate threats. When you send a threatening message from one state to another, especially in connection with an ongoing criminal investigation, that is not a local matter anymore. That is federal. That falls under a specific set of laws that give the FBI clear authority to move. So think about what that means. There is now a second parallel criminal investigation. One is about what happened on Horn Island on the 4th of July. The other is about what has happened since. Somebody somewhere is sending threatening messages across state lines to people connected to this case. And whoever is doing it just gave the federal government a clean reason to be in the middle of this. Who is being threatened? Who is sending it? Where is it coming from? What is being said? Those are the questions the FBI is running down right now. We do not have public answers yet, but the fact that they are running them down at all tells you this case has already grown beyond one island. Threats do not come out of nowhere. Threats come from people who are afraid. Threats come from people who think a witness is about to talk. Threats come from people who are trying to keep a story closed that they can feel starting to open. That is what threats mean in a case like this. It is a tell. Every threat is somebody telling the world that they are worried the truth is coming. Now let me come back to the phone because I want to be honest with you about one more thing before I let this video end. And this is the sentence that is going to matter later. Deleted does not mean gone. I have been telling you all night that the messages on that phone might be gone forever. And that is true for the device. But that is not the whole picture because Snapchat, the company, keeps some information even after the message on your phone is gone. They keep metadata. Metadata is data about data. It is not the picture itself, but it can be the fact that a picture was sent. It can be the fact that two accounts talk to each other at a specific time. It can be the login records. It can be the IP address. It can be the location that account was in when that message went out. That does not exist on Nolan's phone. That exists on Snapchat's servers at their headquarters, and Snapchat has a very specific process by which law enforcement can request that data. That request has to come with the right paperwork. That paperwork has to be filed. And once it is filed, and once Snapchat pulls that record, you get to see not the messages themselves, but the shape of the conversation. Who talked to who, when, from where, how long. That alone can rebuild a night. That is why deleted does not mean gone. That is why the joint inspection is only phase 1. Phase 2 is the paperwork to Snapchat. And phase 2, in a case where interstate threats are already being investigated by the FBI, moves fast. So here's the picture, all put together in one place. A 19-year-old kid disappears on the 4th of July. His phone comes home to a friend's house instead of to him. His account shows 0 activity for the day. His mother watches the whole thing happen on a map on her screen. When she gets the phone back, there is nothing on it. The family's lawyer and the state's lawyer will only open the device together because neither trusts the other. And the FBI is now looking at interstate threats being sent to people in the middle of it. That is not a swimming accident. That is not a bad night on a boat. That is a case that has already produced a criminal exposure that goes beyond the water. And it all comes back to one phone. I want to leave you where I always want to leave you, with the mother. Because when you strip away the technology and the lawyers and the letters and the servers, this is what this story is. A mother at her kitchen table watched a dot move across her phone screen. That dot was her son's phone. Her son was not with it. She got the phone back, it was empty. And the last 24 hours of her son's life in the app where he lived his social life may already be deleted forever. That is what she is carrying. That is what the joint inspection is trying to give back to her. Even a piece of it. Even one message, even one location ping, even one thing that tells her what her son was doing in the last hours he was alive. If you know somebody who was in that Snapchat circle on July 4th, if you know somebody who was sent something that night and swiped past it, if you saw anything before the 24-hour window closed, call bencrump.com, 888-991-1772. You can be anonymous, you can be first name only, you do not have to appear on camera, you do not have to give up your account, you just have to be one voice louder than the silence. Subscribe. Turn on the bell for the moment the phone is finally opened together in the same room in front of both sides. When that happens, we cover it here first. And when the FBI moves on the interstate threats, we cover that too. This is the case that changes the way missing person cases get investigated in the age of disappearing messages. And you are watching it happen in real time.